All right, so Renton Millar here, head judge for Park of the 2024 Olympic Games. We have the recap video to let you know how the judges were thinking when we scored this event. So I'm going to go through men's prelims, followed by men's final. I think everyone can get a lot from hearing how all the skaters were scored. There's different examples that apply to different people that may happen to your skaters in the future or yourself. And it's probably cool to just hear how the judges interpreted each performance from each skater. So my role is head judge. So my job is to lead the judging panel. I have to make sure that they do all of their pre-event work and make sure they have all the information needed to do an accurate job of judging. I try and give them as much information as I can possible. So I watch as much practice as I can. I skate the course as much as I can. I try and get used to it, try and figure out how it works. Again, what things will affect people's runs and as many details as I can get. And then I try and give all of that as much as possible to the judges. They also do the same. I need to make sure they're scoring in a way that adheres to the World Skate criteria. I also overlook the judges' scoring and the rankings and watch out for any anomalies in their process or their scoring. The judging panel at the Olympic Games was 5 scoring judges and an alternate judge. What I have learnt while judging is the judges are looking at the skaters under a very close microscope. And myself as a head judge, I look at the bigger picture. I look at a number of other things that are happening. I might be checking scores with previous days round. I may be looking to remind the judges of things that may be coming in the competition. And also my job is to do my best to keep the scoring spaced. So that means we don't get jammed up. We don't get someone with a 76.6 and a 76.7 that would allow no one else to go in between it. So that's one of my responsibilities. Everyday scores will vary. So between different phases, scores can be different. That's something that you always have to remember with skating in competitions, world skate competitions. The most important thing to look at is not the score, but the ranking. So the judges are scoring to the ranking and they give the particular score based on the ranking that they want the skateboarder to have. So that's very important. It's one to remember. Again, just remember that scores will vary from day to day. Okay, so in 22nd position, we had Dallas Oberholzer. Bailed with 10 seconds remaining. Second time Olympian. Doing it for the old dudes. Well done, Dallas. Good stuff. Bit of an inspiration. That's cool. In 21st position, we had Victor Solmunde from Denmark. Victor had some great results this season in the lead up, in the qualifying, but in this one he bailed with 17 seconds remaining. Didn't quite get his stuff together, but well done to make it there, Victor. Good stuff. In 20th place, we had Danny Leon, another skater that skated really well in some of the qualifiers, taking out the Dubai event. Been pretty consistent throughout and skated really, really well. This event just wasn't his event. Bailed with 17 seconds remaining. We know that Danny could do better, but that's skateboarding. Sometimes you got it, sometimes you don't. That's part of the game. But yeah, well done, Danny. In 19th place, we had Alain Cordabatate. Alain had some rad results this season, has skated pretty well at a number of events and made the Olympics, which is a huge achievement. With Alain's run, his first trick, I'll spin off on a little bit of a tangent here, just to explain a little bit about this trick and its intricacies. So first trick was a kickflip mute. I think what we've generally seen with kickflip mutes, they're normally, the more refined ones are grabbed around the knee, they're grabbed tuck knee. And that's probably for a couple of reasons. I think it's considered amongst the people that can do that trick to be more difficult. And I think it looks better. It requires a more advanced, refined technique. And so we saw Alain do a kickflip mute, grab between the legs. It's probably not the most... It's not the ultimate way to do that trick, you know, like you probably prefer to do it like get it on tuck knee and get a nice position. I'm just making this point because judges point this stuff out. If a trick can be done with a better technique, it's normally noted from the judges, and this was a good example, the kickflip mute. Also, like as time goes on, we're seeing with a lot more of the flip tricks that some skaters are getting them, putting them on their feet, getting in a nice little position. A good example is Keegan Palmer in the prelims. He did a kickflip tuck knee over the spine, or over the spine gap. And we're seeing with that more and more, with the more control that people get, the more they're turning a trick that was more just like a flip catch, get any way you can, get it to your feet and land. It's turning into flip catch control. Another good example is Tate kickflip Indy over the fun box, the jump box. Really controlled, flip, grab to the feet, around the leg, and a lot of control. That's the way flip tricks, I think, are going, is more and more control as we go on. Also, obviously, with kickflip indies, we do see a lot of people sort of grabbing between the legs, it's definitely acceptable. It's no problem. I mean, people can make it look good. If you can make anything look good, it is going to be fine to do. It doesn't matter what trick, how the reputation of the trick or whatever, if it's normally done a certain way, if you make it look good, then I think you are always going to be accepted by the judges, get a positive result from the judges. But certain tricks done certain ways, sometimes they look better done in a more refined way. Back to the kickflip Indy, you might ask why a kickflip Indy is more acceptable to be done between the legs, and a kickflip mute maybe less people do between the legs. And I think that's just because of the aesthetics of that trick. And it's also, I mean, if you look at people do Indy as grabbing between their legs, and you can make it look quite good. it's not really often you see people grab a mute between their legs, a backside mute between the legs. I think it's so seldom, I couldn't recall the last time I saw it. And so when you apply a flip trick to that same fundamental trick, the mute air, I guess if judges have a very, if they're scrutinizing the trick, that's the first thing they're going to see is it's not done in that more refined manner. But anyway, like we had the advancement of skateboarding. At the start, flip tricks were just flip, catch, grab, whatever way you can do it. That was 30 years ago. And as time has gone on, the flip tricks have still held their value as technical tricks. But what we're seeing now is the control that is brought to the tricks. You know, as I said, with Keegan and Tate and stuff like that. So back to Align. First trick, kickflip mute. Still a flip trick, still a difficult trick, so he's still got credit for it. But it's certainly something that the judges are going to look at in a critical way if you're not doing it in that refined fashion. Or if you're not doing it in the refined fashion, at least making it look extremely controlled, extremely well. It's just done really, really well. Okay, so Align did the big gap indie transfer. This was good. I think he carved like the whole park to get to that one move. So that can be a little bit risky when you go the whole course to do one move. You got to be careful how much is sacrificed for one trick. It was a good move. The lead up to that was a backside 5-0. So it really was like a full lap of the park for one trick. I think you got to be careful of doing that. I think, you know, there's value in saving up for one trick, like pumping around the whole park to do one absolute banger, but you just got to make sure that it's worth your while. Align did a waterfall kickflip indie to the deep. That was great. Good use of park. Align has a great use of park. It goes very fast. It's a very Spanish style of skating. And he's ripped all season. That's why he's in the Olympics. But a good performance. I don't want anything that I said to take too much away. It was just an example of that was going to allow me to explain how judges see things. But great performance, Align. 18th place, we had Andy McDonald. So Andy Mack has pretty much mastered his own style of skateboarding. I think the stuff he does is incredible. I mean, for 30 years or whatever, constantly pushed the limits of skateboarding, has his own style and really applied it in that fashion at the Olympics. So started out with the extension backside roll-in. It was really fast. Anytime you're going to show the judges that you skate really, really fast or as fast as you can, it's going to be a statement that you're 100% committed, and that the judges really like that. So it's just a roll-in, but like that was just something that you notice as a judge is how fast people go. The big air hip, Japan air. Japan airs are different. They're not normally done so much in park as like they are in vert. Classic trick. Not the hugest Japan airs, but it's different. So Andy's sort of showing, you know, a bit of differentiation to other people. Had fairly good use of the park. So had the vert extension nollie heel flip frontside air. It's a very Andy Mack trick and a tech trick, great trick. It wasn't huge, but definitely showed a lot of difficulty. Hit the big air hip with a lean crossbone. It wasn't huge, but he tweaked it very well. And hit the square Kano hip, fronted air transfer to the spine. It wasn't huge, but I mean, Andy's making all of his stuff. Sometimes you got to make sacrifices to stay on your board. Vert extension, body varial 540. Andy jump box fakie 540 was great. No one else did a trick like that. I don't think anyone 540 the box. Andy completed his run. It was a great run. Olympian at over 50 years old and absolutely shredding. Judges got booed for Andy's score, and that's normal. We quite prepared to be booed. Because I mean, a lot of people don't understand how we judge it, don't understand the rank order evaluation. I'll explain a little bit about scaling and how the score will change from day to day. The best thing to look at really is your ranking and not the score. The judges really liked Andy's run, but to respect the other skaters, they needed to score it in respect to the other scores already on the board. So at the time of Andy's run, the correlating score that would have put him in the ranking position that the judges thought was fit was a 77.66. The judges couldn't give him a higher score because he would have then ranked higher than the person above him. And that wouldn't be fair to knock someone out that Andy didn't skate better than. So Andy got a 77.66. I think that's a great score. He absolutely shredded Olympic Games. The level is so high. And without a doubt, we give all respect to Andy. Well done. 17th place, we had Tyler Edmeyer. Skated really, really well. Started out with the big air hip Indy alley-oop over the gap. Great start, but he did carve a lot of the park to get to the first trick. It's a good trick, but we're definitely going to take it into consideration if you're carving the whole park. You're sacrificing a bit to get to that one trick. But it's a good trick, and it shows use of the park. Tyler had great use of the park. I think that trick was a line that not a lot of other people were doing. So I think perhaps it was worth carving the whole park. But I just think just always think about that. How far you're going to carve for one single trick. If you're sacrificing 3 tricks to do one trick, that one trick better be good value, is what I would assume. So Tyler did the grind off extension frontside feeble grind off. That's a great trick. Frontside feeble's a fundamental trick, more advanced fundamental trick, and he's put it on an obstacle. So it's a good recipe for showing that you're using the park and you're showing a bit of difficulty, showing a bit of like a classic trick. So that's pretty cool. So he was really linking the park together really well. One thing I would say about the execution, there was a little bit of sketchiness in there. The carve before the Millar 540 had a bit of kick turn vibes about it. It's a little bit like carve and then the end, like front wheels come off. Judges definitely prefer no kick turns. I guess sometimes you when you pick a certain line, you just can't get out of it, but we try to avoid that, So the backside Smith over the waterfall to the deep didn't lock in super well. We're really cutting right down to the fine minutiae of the run, and we have to do that because the level is really so high. 50-50 on the setback ledge was a little bit of a hang on and land it rather than being totally controlled. But it was all in all, it was a sick run. The tail grab 540 at the end didn't count. It was just after time. I think Tyler skated great. I think in respect to Andy and Tyler, who both made runs and aligned quarter batat, I really can appreciate the fact that they've gone out for 18 months qualifying. Pressure, Olympic Games, biggest stage in the world. They've made their runs. They've done really good runs, and they should be proud. I think what can be unfortunate for some people is when other people make runs that are better, and it just means that Andy and Tyler ended up being in 17th and 18th place. But we're talking the biggest event in the world, the gold standard of skateboarding, and to be honest, they're up there, the best skaters in the world, and that's pretty rad. But yeah, they made runs, and that's where they were in the order. Okay, so 16th place we had Kieran Woolley. So we're about to get into the area of skaters that maybe had small mistakes and either pretty close to complete runs or complete runs, and those small mistakes had big consequences. And that really is because the event was so competitive. When everyone makes stuff and everyone's skating at a high level, it's got to be differentiated somehow. And the next few skaters, I think, are good examples of how detrimental they can be when everyone else is skating so well. So 16th place, we had Kieran Woolley, run number 3, 80.04. So great use of the park, has a lot of tricks. Body jar off the extension is I thought was a fairly innovative move. It's kind of an obvious move because it's a fundamental trick and people have been skating extensions for a long time. But it's also a very scary trick, like going down an extension and hitting your tail. I think the reason why I haven't seen it, and I've been skating for a long time, following skating for a long time, 4 decades, whatever, is because it's kind of like bone-shakingly scary. You know, it's a gnarly trick, and I thought that was a pretty cool, innovative kind of approach. Creative, a bit exciting. Setback ledge frontside 5-0 off the hip, and then 5-0 and ollieing in. Other people were hitting it and grabbing indie. Other people weren't grinding it just to stall. So to have Kieran ollie up 5-0 and ollie in, that was a little extra spice on that particular move. When it's a competitive competition, anything you're doing that's adding little bits and pieces like that is all gonna go to your favour. So Kieran was linking together the tricks really well, making them look good. On the square kano, hip to spine to frontside air, most other people were using that obstacle to just get through. Like it was like an air or whatever to just get through whatever you need to do, just not big. Kieran had his foot on the gas, you know, like and that, you know, on a spot where everyone else is cruising through, and you got someone else just giving it as hard as they can. That makes a difference. Big air hip alley, backside tail grab. Again, foot firmly on the gas, going as fast as he can. And the setback wall, backside boneless. Really using most of the obstacles and linking them together. It's like the essence of park skating is to link those obstacles together in a nice, fluent line with as many tricks as possible, as hard a trick as possible with the best execution. Unfortunately for Kieran, he had a bail on the time. I mean, it was kickflip indie varial to fakie, blindside over the hip. Pretty cool trick. So it was so much on time when he bailed, there was no seconds to go on the clock. It was like bail on, like right, you know, in the middle of the trick, the clock, in the trick, the clock went. So it was pretty much like it counts. So if you start your trick and the buzzer goes off, it counts. The bail's in. Seems very harsh. But at the level that we're talking about, these small things are going to have big consequences. And unfortunately for Kieran, bailing when his run was still going was something that really affected his score. Unfortunate, but Kieran's a shredder. He'll be back. Congrats, Kieran, on your second Olympics. 15th place, another skater that had a really, really good run, basically. But, you know, had a little mistake in there that cost him, like Kieran. Probably not as bad as a bail, but he had a sketch that cost him in the middle of his run. So Euro kicked it off with a kickflip body varial 5. Great way to start a run. Nice and heavy, just pretty much makes a statement. I'm here, I'm going to do the best stuff I can. Kickflip body varial 5, I think it was, maybe the hardest move from the last Olympics. So it definitely, to be seeing this in the prelims is showing, the advancements of skateboarding and the progression of it. So he did the setback wall Smith grind, which was great. Again, I mentioned before, Kieran ollieing up to a 5-0, ollieing in. On the setback wall, it was a bit bigger, and skaters were, grabbing, yanking their board to come back in. Euro grinded, so he didn't just do a stall, he grinded and he ollied in. Didn't grab his board. So there was a little bit more to it than that. As well. He also had in there the big air hip kickflip indie to vert extension. So coming out, rolling, kickflip body varial 540, carve, big air hip to vert extension, kickflip indie. That is a really, really solid line. And then following up on the waterfall backside Smith to the deep end indie 540, and then going into the setback wall Smith grind. All of that is a recipe for getting a good score. He's got a great execution, great approach, looks good on a skateboard. So that's really what judges are looking for. Hit the square caner with a fronted ollie 1 foot to tail. I think, that was probably his move to have a little break from doing such rad stuff. Such intense stuff, like when you're having a run and you're going super hard, obviously you need to back off at some point to be able to get your composure again. I think that was for Euro that point in his run. And he did the carve, and this is where he kind of made his mistake, was he went up the grind off extension and backside nose grind and then sketched. It seems super, super harsh given that he had just had such a really good start to his run that we punished him for this. So he sketched the backside nose grind and went into a frontside kick turn. He did come back fairly strong, like with a jump box hip alley-oop, frontside air, and a deep end frontside blunt. But the biggest problem is you have all of these other dudes that are shredding so hard. I know as someone that's competed quite a lot before, it's hard to take if you make a mistake and you get. I think at this level, the biggest point in this competition that affects the way that you're going to get scored is the fact that everybody else is absolutely shredding. As I said, like that, all the runs leading into this are all fantastic runs. It's such good skateboarding, and we're talking about the people that are 15, 16, 17, that's how competitive it is. So yeah, basically Euro was punished for that sketchy backside nose grind in the frontside kick turn. But that's because in 14th place we had the skater that skated better than him, and that was Steve Pinheiro. So he skated amazingly well again as well. So basically, alley-oop frontside air over the big air hip into the jump box kickflip Indy 360 into the deep end melon 540. So the jump box kickflip Indy 360 is a pretty top-notch trick. It's really good. It's tech. You're rotating, you're flipping. He's done an alley-oop frontside air into it, which is a solid way to set up. Deep end melon 540 after it. Got some really good stuff going. Did the setback wall frontside axle to yank in. So to grab and yank it in. So the yank in's not as hard as the straight ollie in, and we have other people grinding it. So that one's not done as well as everyone else, but that's cool. His other stuff has been pretty good. He had a really good run, but he's up against other skaters who've also had really good runs. And I think you really have to. Sometimes when you're a skater and you have such a good run, you walk out after it and you're like, it's hard to take when you are a little bit down the order. And I think immediately skaters think about the people above him and think about like, what, oh man, I could have beaten that dude. It's like, I think the most important thing is to first look at the people that you beat. So if we go back ahead of Steve, we've got Euro, who had a ridiculously good run. We had Kieran that had a ridiculously good run. We had Tyler that had a ridiculously good run. We had Andy that had a ridiculously good run. And then we had Alain Cordobatar. So that's some solid skateboarding that he's ahead of. You know, like I think that his position was well and truly earned. He skated really, really well. We're just in a position where when everyone's shredding, it's just hard. Like we only have 8 people that can make the cut. We don't flex that, and yeah. But I think all these skaters can hold their head up really, really high. They skated amazingly well. Which gets me to my next skater, who, again, the same thing. He absolutely killed it. So 13th place, run number 2 from Portugal. We had Thomas Augusto. Such a gnarly run. So many tricks. Lots of difficulty. Good use of the park. So basically rolled in, kickflip body varial 540. Super hard trick, you know what I mean? Like, we all know how hard that trick is. Carve, alley-oop frontside air, backside Smith to the deep and melon 5. Set back wall frontside axle yanking, jump box kickflip melon, carve, big air hip alley-oop indie, carve, hit the grind off box, lip slide up it, solid, vert extension backside 50-50 off it, square kano, hit hip to spine indie bone, carve, and then a hip frontside ollie. So a super solid run. So if I was going to be super critical, which is my job as a judge, I would say that there probably wasn't a great deal of stuff in there that was going to differentiate Thomas from the rest of the field as far as creativity. And I think when you're looking at a run that's as difficult and as rad as Thomas's, and you're weighing up against these other skaters, you need something that is going to differentiate you from the rest of the pack. Euro, who goes as fast as he can, has a extremely good style. He has some tricks that are very well placed around his run. He definitely has his own style, his own approach. I think, of course, Thomas has his own style. He has his own approach. But I think a lot of the tricks, I don't think there was much in that run that absolutely nobody else did. And I think that's something that's important. You know, like to stand out, you have to do stuff that no one else is doing. I think, you know, his kickflip melons are consistent as anyone can ever do them, and they're really, really good. Aside from that, I don't see there's much else in there that where Thomas has brought his own personality and his own creativity into the run. And it's a very important thing, because when everyone is making their stuff, you need something to stand out. I think you need to bring some personal character to the difficulty that he's already clearly got. But that's just being critical, and that's just giving a reason to see why he is where he is. The next skater really does have, that is one of his things that he has. And so that's Vincent Matheron. So he skates really different, has his own character. Creativity is a key part of his run. It's a key part of his skateboarding. So he brings a lot of tricks that no one else is doing, and an approach that no one else is doing. I think it'd be pretty fair to say that he is a park skater. And I think when I try and analyze that to myself, to think about what that really means, and that means an approach to the park that really brings tricks that very much suit the skate park, as opposed to bringing tricks that may be suiting other places and then forcing him to fit. I think a lot of Vince's stuff is stuff that just fits very well into these skate parks, because he is an actual park skater. He's not someone that has that skates other stuff and then comes to park for the competitions. He skates parks. That's his whole gig. So Vincent, different kind of skater, clearly has a different approach to the other skaters. I think it really showed in the moves like the setback wall, frontside 5-0, ollie disaster in, and the sugar cane in the deep. He skates very, very fast, has different tricks to other people, has a great line through the park, a creative approach. Also threw a 540 in there to show he can do sort of more regular types of moves. I think that's important. I don't think if you're just a creative skater, you can get by on just being creative. I think you have to bring what other people are bringing as well. I think otherwise you get left behind. Vince had a very complete run. Great use of the park, some good variation, some difficult moves in there. I think 12th place, well done, Vince. 11th place, Alessandro Mazzara with run number 2, 83.17. It was a great run. I think this run had great use of the park, great execution, great tricks. Vert extension mute 540 was really big. Pretty much used almost all of the key pieces of the park. Did the vert wall gap, the grind off extension, the square cano, the rail, the setback ledge, and setback wall. I think potentially he might have been the only skater that used absolutely all of those obstacles. He also skated the back of the square cano, which with the backside tower slide, which stood out to me because it was. I think it was one of the harder tricks on that obstacle. It was one of the more creative sort of tricks because no one else was hitting it like that. But I thought it was a great run. If I was going to be really critical, he did do 2 frontside grinds, so there's a bit of repetition in there. But I mean, that was a super rad run. Well done, Alessandro. 10th place, Gavin Botka. Skater that's had some amazing results, consistently skated really, really good in all the qualifiers, and of course he skated good at the Olympic Games. Just got beaten by others. Creative, great use of the park, difficulty. I think it says a lot about the state of the competition when a run like this is in 10th place. I think the crooked grinder fakie into the vert extension cab heel flip, that was insane. The cab heel flip Indy is a pretty tough flip trick. Certain flip tricks are easier than others. I think that's one of the harder, as far as a flip grab, I think that's one of the harder ones that we see at these events. To be critical, he did have a few walls that weren't the strongest. Backside alley-oop, lean melon, blindside fakie ollie, frontside sailfish. It seems harsh because he had such other great moves, but we really have to, as judges, we have to look at the whole piece. Had original stuff, was a great run, creative, but I guess we're judging the gold standard of skateboarding. So, that run fell where it did, and I think Gavin should be. I mean, the fact that he made the Olympics and has done so well at all the qualifiers, it's an amazing achievement. So 9th place, we had Hampus with an 82.02. His best run was number 3. So I saw that Hampus looked to be a bit perplexed with his score after his first run. Judges got some booing, which for us, it's fine. Like, that's the deal. I've been... But we also saw Hampus give us like the thumbs down, like be like kind of like that, which is also absolutely fine. It does not affect how he's being scored, none of that. But it just led me to believe that perhaps I should explain a few things about why the judges scored the way they did. And that's not to try and retort to the thumbs down. It's more just if I see that someone doesn't understand why we are judging a certain way, I really want to let them know how we judge to hopefully have them apply the criteria to their skateboarding and get a better result in the future. To me, as a judge, the most frustrating thing is when skaters don't understand how it's judged. It's just better if people know what the judges want to see. I think there's less frustration, and I think for the sake of transparency and all that, I want to explain. To have a look first, let's look at the skaters that Hampus was above. Almost all of them skated extremely well, making full runs. So again, we have Gavin Bocca, Alessandro Mazzara, Vincent Matheron, Thomas Augusto, Steve Pinheiro. As I said, these dudes all just had great runs. Yuro Nagahara, Kieran Woolley, Tyler Ettmeyer, Andy McDonald, Alain Corbett-Tart. They're the dudes that made their runs. So Hampus' first run scored an 82.02. So against the highest scoring runs, that was under Alessandro Mazzara. Alessandro Mazzara had a great run. So we thought that was completely fair. Wouldn't have been appropriate to put Hampus above Alessandro. So I'm going to go through Hampus' first one. It was a run that didn't count, but I'm just going to explain it because, as I said, he was perplexed. So he dropped in a vert extension heel flip indie, or rolled in, whatever. Vert extension heel flip indie, hip to spine frontside air, carve, drop off extension, lip slide up, frontside nose grind off the hip, and the jump box nose grab 360. Okay, so pretty far we're pretty good. And to be honest, I really, really liked the frontside nose grind. I think that the execution and power of the nose grind was fantastic. It was like whenever you skate with purpose and drive, it's good, power is great. Okay, so jump box nose grab 360, and then he goes into a deep end nose grab 540. So we have a really competitive round. We're punishing Euro for sketching a nose grind doing a kick turn. We're punishing Kieran for bailing on just before the buzzer. So we are being really harsh. So that's just to set the scene for this. So nose grab 360 the box followed by a nose grab 540 is pretty similar. So one of the things we've got to look out for is repetition. We don't want to see repetition. In isolation, it's not really a huge deal, but it's also compounded what we're going to see next. And just to add to, I think pretty much like a nose grab 3 over a box, the equivalent on a quarter pipe is basically a nose grab 540, is what I would assume most people would understand. So coming up next after the nose grab 5, we have kickflip body varial indie. Okay, so this is the second backside flip indie on a quarter pipe. Basically the exact same obstacle that the other flip indie was done on. Again, in isolation, may not be too bad. You've got two kickflip indie moves on 2 quarter pipes, which are the same. But what we're seeing is not much variety. We're seeing some repetition here. We're not seeing a plethora of different skills. We're saying the same thing. The judges want to see, a multitude of different things. So the next wall we've got a lip slide into the deep. Okay, so that's the second lip slide that he's done in the run. So just on those other little things, there's a couple of little things like banking up that he's done twice, but then bang, he's done the same trick twice. Second lip slide in the run. So there's definite repetition going now. Okay, so next up we've got a hip frontside air. If we're going to be really harsh, we could say that this was a very similar trick to what was done over the spine. So again, we've got a little bit of repetition. Again, in isolation, it's not the worst thing, but just reflecting on the rest of the run, it just shows that there's a lack of variety kind of overall. So then he's got the backside hip air over the hip to the vert. It's a nice solid gap, but we've also just seen a nose grab 360 and a 540 nose grab. Not the worst thing. Again, just isolating those things, it's not the worst thing. But in skateboarding, we have like tail grabs, we have melons, we have stales, we have mutes, we have so many different grabs. And when we're talking about like a super competitive round at the Olympics, the judges are going to be looking at all this sort of stuff. All this stuff is good, but probably the compilation of these tricks, it could definitely be better. Okay, so next up we have the grind off extension gap kickflip indie. Okay, so this is the third backside flip indie grab, but with the overall impression, the judges are pretty stoked to see someone do a flip over that gap. That gap is pretty cool. So not many people are doing it. So the judges, even though it's like the third flip indie grab, kind of sort of let it slide just because it's an area that other people aren't skating. But to note, it is the third flip grab in the run. And the judges are already like noting a lack of variation in the run. Okay, so indie air over the jump box is great. But again, it's like there's already been a number of straight indies over the spine, over the hip, and I think there's been 3 flip indie grabs already. So another little bit more of, it's all these just little things that are adding up. And I don't mean to hang this on Hampus. I really just want to explain it so we can just be clear on why we are judging a certain way. And again, there's a lot of grabs around. You can do kickflip mutes, you can do kickflip melon, you can do kickflip stale, kickflip tail. Yeah. So the frontside nose blunt yanking on the setback wall was good. And then it was straight following that was a kickflip varial indie over the jump box hip. Good trick, but it was the 4th backside flip indie variation. It's great, like there's no doubt that there's difficulty in flipping your board so many times. We know that. But the only thing is we're also looking for variety, not just difficulty. So then we got the kickflip indie in the deep end. Again, it's great, but it's the 5th variation of a backside flip indie grab. And it's the 3rd straight quarter pipe variation of a flip indie grab. Difficulty is there. The variation is not so there. There's some repetition in it. And had a higher degree of variation in the tricks, it would have scored better. Less repetition, it would have scored better as well. So this run was below Alessandro's run. Okay, so that was the run that I just went into. That was the one where Hampus was perplexed of why he was scored a certain way and kind of showed us that. So this is the actual run that he did. So this is his highest scoring run. It was a great run. It ended up in 9th, so just missed the cut by 1. Whenever someone's in this position, it's always frustrating. So I completely understand, like, it's just so close but so far. So kicked it off with a vert extension heel flip indie, hip to spine frontside air, carve, drop of extension, melon lip slide, and frontside grind off the hip. So the frontside grind off the hip, he did leave out the frontside nose grind, which I thought was really good, but he came in and did the sort of half shove it, half body varial lip slide on the rail. Judges thought that was good. It was different. Yeah, it's kind of like a shove it body varial sort of a trick on a rail. So no one else sort of did stuff in that sort of area. But the only thing is that was kind of, and I mean, this is still a run that came 9th place. So it was a great run. It was a great run. There's no doubt. We're just sort of explaining why it wasn't any higher. So the body varial shove it lip slide thing, it was the first of 3 body varial-ish variations coming. So followed in the deep end was a double grab body varial around the world sort of thing. And then that was followed by the kickflip body varial on the quarter pipe. So again, there's probably a little bit of lack of variety. You have 45 seconds to do your tricks. The judges are keen to see as many different things as possible. I think, when you do a flip body varial, we kind of know that you're going to be able to do a regular body varial. Like, it kind of goes without saying. So, in that case, we are kind of seeing a little bit of repetition. And then also, like, even with the body varial shove it to lip slide, it's like a lot of... That's different to these other tricks, but it is in the same area, so I think that's completely fine, but it is all coming, they're all coming from the same sort of side. And just to note as well, just because you put a body variable in your trick doesn't immediately trump like a fundamental trick without a body variable. I think you can do it, straight air and do it really, really well too. So you don't have to be doing like as complex tricks as you can. Sometimes you can simple it down and get same or a better result. Okay, so this is getting spicy at this part of the run, I think. So lip slide to backside Smith was really, really good over the waterfall. And then he did the grind off hip back Smith off it. So they're pretty rad sort of grind tricks. Lip slide to back Smith's a trick that it was different to what anyone else did. No one did that trick. And then the grind off hip back Smith off. It wasn't a trick that a lot of people did, and Hampus made it look really, really good. I think those two tricks brought a lot to the run. In Hampus's first run, he kickflip indied the gap. This is a great move, technically harder than a lot of other things. But in the run that he scored better on, he did a backside Smith off that grind off extension. So when judges factor in that, maybe there's some other tricks like a lot of flip indie grabs, maybe a simpler trick actually can bring more to your run. Like rather than just have another flip indie grab, adding the backside Smith, it brings more because it's a different trick. It's a different type of trick. And they're two really, really good tricks. But I think, given the fact that he's done sort of like 4 or 5 kickflip indies in his run, maybe the backside Smith does fit to bring a lot more to his run. So frontside nose blunt yank in, that's obviously really, really good. The jump box hip kickflip indie varial, that's good. At the end of the day, Hampus skated great. I think maybe the variety of tricks and the repetition were two things that stop him advancing higher. I hate to be critical because it was an absolutely rad run. I thought in practice he was one of the most exciting skaters to watch at any point in time. But I just want to explain why the judges scored that they did, because Hampus has like a massive future, and I think it would be unfair not to explain exactly what we're thinking and to help everybody understand the way we're thinking better to get everyone skating the best possible way to get a good score. Okay, so in 8th place we had Augusto Accio. So started out vert kickflip indie was a good way to start. Augusto has great 540s over hips. Some people don't, when they do a 540 over hip, they have a real mini ramp style. Augusto has a vert style where he ducks his head and goes a bit higher. It brings a lot more to the trick. I think it means that it's a more valuable move. It's really good. Did the setback blocks frontside Smith. Anytime someone does a Yankee in or grinds, it's good. It shows a little bit more extra skill than other people. Deep end corner fronted air was good. It's creative. A good use of the skate park. Following up the corner air with a 5 on the rail was also a really good choice. You don't normally see a corner air into a rail trick. It's like a sort of a pull sort of trick or a vert trick into a rail trick. I think that's a good contrast of different things. And it was a solid run, good use of park, good execution, good variety of tricks, no repeats, using all of the park and rewarded with 8th. Well done. Okay, so Luigi Cini in 7th place, run number 1. So lots of tricks, got some hammers in there. Starting with the alley body varial flip indie over the gap, like pretty wild kind of maneuver. Nose grind off the grind off extension was great. Had a lot of flips, was a good run throughout, used the skate park. Well done, Luigi. 6th place, we had Pedro Barros, 89.24 with his first run. Pedro's a veteran. He knows exactly what he's doing. He really doesn't need my critique. I'm going to give it anyway. Perhaps my rundown of Pedro will help others get an idea of what the judges are thinking. But he's been skating for a long time. He gets it. I know that. So start with the vert kickflip indie over the hip gap. Full gas. That's always good to see. Anytime you're skating full gas, it's great. Waterfall backside tail slide at speed. Everything is at speed. And then he's got the vert extension Starfish 540. When I read it out, it doesn't sound like much. From my own experience skating that course, I found how hard it was to get speed doing that line, basically going from over the waterfall to shallow and then hitting that extension. It really was hard to get speed. Pedro went warp speed and he did it out of the backside tail slide. He did a massive Starfish 540. Just knowing how hard it was to get speed, how big he went and how bionic it was, I think that was really testament just to how good a skateboarder Pedro is. One thing I will say is Pedro did repeat the use of the vert extensions with 3 tricks and repeated the waterfall in pretty close succession. But I think, what came next really compensated for it. It was a creative line using the whole park. Also just going really, really fast. The hip India to fakie, it was just a setup, but I thought it was a nice setup. And then he basically did the switch 50-50. He was able to use an obstacle of the park going switch. So it's one thing to skate switch, whatever, hit a quarter pipe switch, that's one thing. But I think to hit an obstacle like the grind off extension, skating switch, that just shows, how adaptable he is. And then he basically did the spine tail slide off over the square Kano hip and set back wall Smith grind. Really good use of the park, a great line, and skated with speed, lots of power. That was great. Okay, so 5th place we had Kiefer Wilson, 90.1, run number 3. Wow, what a run. Great use of the park, high difficulty tricks, great variety. One thing I did notice was while he was doing all this really hard stuff, he didn't sketch once, which is pretty impressive, I thought. Okay, so with Kiefer, started out with the vert extension kickflip indie over the gap to the hip. So quite a big gap. Not everyone was hitting it. He was hitting it with a flip. Carve. Hit the grind off extension hip with a kickflip frontside air. So just made that look really good. The channel alley-oop body jar. So he linked together that one obstacle, the grind off hip, the grind off extension hip into the channel with 2 pretty rad tricks, alley-oop body jar out of the kickflip frontside air. So all looking good. Then the setback ledge backside 50-50. That was pretty sick. Backside 5-0 to regain his sort of composure. Vert extension kickflip body varial 540. Again, that trick is a banger. After the stuff that he's already done, quite heavy, quite rad. And then did the jump box cork frontside 3. That looked really, really good. And then just straight into the deep end McTwist. Just a lot of tricks, a lot of difficulty, a lot of using the park. And then out of the McTwist, hit the 50-50 on the rail. And then vert extension frontside lip slide, waterfall frontside nose grind, hip alley-oop Indy 360 to fakie. So quite a lot of difficulty, and at the same time being difficult, he's also hitting a lot of different obstacles and then ending with a cab backside D. So very full run, very good run, and a run that got Kiefer in at 5th place. So well done. 4th place, Tate Carew with a 90.42 with run number 2. The jump box kickflip indie was done very, very well. I talked before about how we have the advancements in the way that people are taking flip indie grabs and just different flip grabs, and that this is a great example. Deep end frontside sailfish, not the hardest trick, but Tate makes it look good. The deep end backside Smith was amazing. was really good. I mean, the fact that Tate stopped for a split second in the middle of his backside Smith, relaxed, put his arms behind his back in the middle of his qualifying run for the Olympics, is skilled and highly skilled. And also I found it to be a little bit comical. It made me laugh that, you know, like in such a stressful moment, he's just chilling and doing this steezed out backside Smith. I thought that was great. I mean, whenever some sort of flair can be brought into a run, some sort of point of difference to everybody else, generally it's going to help. I mean, with Tate, it was just in the middle of a backside Smith, which was great. On the negative side, and this is only because we're basically got so many people shredding, we have to pull apart these runs and really just look for all sorts of things to put people ahead of other people, whatever. On the slightly negative side, the first part of Tate's run was all on the same side of the park. I think the start of your run is very important. I think any repetition in your line or your tricks at the start is going to be more noticeable than if you sneak it in at the end. I think that just naturally in skateboarding competitions, if you get a great start to your run, you get a little bit of a pass at what you do at the end. But if you do your stuff at the start of your run that maybe not be perfect, it's going to get a little bit more noticed than if you do it in the second half. If you've already blasted, you've got the most mental stuff, at the end, you're going to maybe get a little bit of a pass for it. But if you do something at the start, before you've done all your use of the park and everything, it's going to probably be noted a little bit more than if you do it in the second half. And I think that's just something that I just noticed that Tate just used half of the park. There's other skaters that did the same thing too, and I think they got a little bit, we noticed it for them as well. So the big air hip frontside blunt off, that was top notch. No one else did it. Really stood out. He's standing out with the execution, trick choice and difficulty. He followed it up with a square Kano hip ollie to frontside nose grind on the spine, and that was great. It was a great combo. I think that might have been like the best lip combo of the competition. I just thought it could have been that frontside blunt to frontside nose grind. It was just pretty solid, just linking together two things, two fairly fundamentally rad tricks, but done very, very well. Some difficulty, use of park. I thought it was really good. Did the big air hip kickflip body varial. I mean, I think when you're over a hip, I think it possibly is actually a hard flip. That was sick. The waterfall backside tail slide was great. Anytime Tate does a tail slide, he makes it look great and really stretches it out. I think it says something to someone that, you know, if you put so much emphasis in your execution of basics, it means every time you do a basic, it's just going to put you that little bit further ahead, you know, than if you just let it just do whatever. And Tate does some really, really good basics. Okay, so the next skater that we had in third place qualifying, we had Alex Sorgente. So more of a parky type skater, run number 2, 91.14, a creative skater. Stands out because of his creativity and his approach to skating the park. Skates it completely different to anyone else. And when you have such a competitive field of people all vying for the top and many of them doing a lot of the same tricks, if you can bring the same difficulty and bring creativity, it can stand out. You know, there's only so many times that the judges can see a kickflip indie, which is an amazing, great trick, and we love kickflip indies. I mean, Alex did one as well. But when people bring stuff that's as difficult or better, and it's completely different and nobody else is doing it, it can be very memorable for the judges. So Alex, he kicked it off with a kickflip indie, got the 5-0 over the waterfall, and then he hit quite a creative trick. I think it was very unexpected for most people. Did a frontside 180 off the hip, landing backwards on the setback ledge, and then fakie ollied in off the setback ledge. That was rad. I mean, I had a look at that obstacle, and it wasn't a small obstacle to do it on. I don't think that was something that was going to be easy or not scary for many people. Alex just did it. So he backed it up with the half cab 50-50 up the grind off extension, and just a lot of very precise move, the half cab backside 50-50, and then did the backside blindside off the hip, and then went straight into the deep end, ollied up the extension off the hip around the corner. One of the best Smith grinds I think I've seen. And then into the alley-oop backside 50-50 on the setback wall. Just every part of the run is quite different and stands out, and he's going as hard as he can. I think it's just very impressive when someone's skating as fast as they can and doing tricks that aren't quite the same as everyone else's. He hit the back of the hip to spine backside tower slide, which is definitely a different approach. Again, if you're hitting an obstacle these obstacles are open to everybody, and if almost no one else is hitting that obstacle, then you have an original creative way to do it, and that was good. And then he ended with the jump box hip nose grab 540, sort of showing that he could do the more stock tricks, and ended with the fifth rail 50-50 and the frontside blunt. Just technicality, creativity, use of the park, flow and consistency. Still really good run the whole way. So yeah, well done, Alex. Okay, so in second place qualifier we had Tom Shah. Started off with a frontside lip over the gap to the extension, waterfall frontside tower slide, deep end heel flip indie, waterfall backside lip slide, vert extension, tail grab 540. So great start to the run, very powerful tricks. Stale frontside 3 over the jump box. Creative way to do a frontside, to do any sort of 3, stalefish frontside 3. A lot of height. Again, just getting back to what I said when I was talking about Tate. Tom did stick to the to half the park for the first part of his run. Just noticeable. It's probably better to be more all around the park as opposed to being half than going out the other. But it's definitely better to be all over it. But that's just been highly critical. Like the gap to lip slide was insane. All of it's really, really good. So big air, alley-oop, lean melon, tweak is great, filler, but it's difficult and well done. Grind off ledge, Smith grind up, and the channel alley-oop backside lip to vert wall. Combine 2 obstacles with great tricks. So 2 obstacles in succession with great trip is always gonna be noticed by the judges. And then came back and did the big air hip alley-oop kickflip indie, keeping up the difficulty. Great run, good difficulty, good use of the park, and stellar execution. That was really good. Well done, Tom. So, first place qualifier, Keegan Palmer. Rolled in on the extension, alley-oop indie bone over the gap to hip. So, the execution of this was superlative. It was classic skateboarding, just great to watch. So then basically did a carve, grind off hip, backside Smith up. So using the obstacle and then hitting the channel with the Melon 540 to vert extension. So linking to the 2 key obstacles with 2 rad tricks. And then hitting the square cane hip kickflip, tuck knee over the spine. So that I feel like was super special. Execution of a kickflip indie or a kickflip frontside air, the execution was perfect. Video game difficulty sort of and execution on that one. It was classic skateboarding. I think anyone that saw it really noticed it and really, really liked it. And it was in the line where he went like basically alley-oop indie, carve, like alley-oop indie over the gap, nice little bone, come back around, carve, backside Smith up the grind off extension, Melon 5 over the channel onto the vert wall, and then kickflip frontside air tweaker onto the spine. Really, really good stuff. He's all over the park, lots of tricks, variation. Then he's in the, like, basically carve, big air hip frontside alley-oop. Okay, so waterfall backside nose grind. I guess this is his time for a bit of respite on the backside nose grind. I guess that's where he sets up. Deep end kickflip melon, lean melon. So as far as the flip tricks that we're seeing in the deep, I think kickflip lean melon is technically as good as any other flip trick that we're seeing. I think aesthetically it's could be the best. It's a great move. It's a hard move. It's a risky move, and it's in a run full of great use of the park, great execution, great trick choice, variety, all of that. So it brought a lot. His tricks are very advanced. He's already done a kickflip like tuck knee. And then so after that, we basically have the waterfall frontside board slide. So again, his chill trick is a frontside board slide, which is it's a pretty solid trick, into a frontside nose grind on the extension, into a jump box lean melon 3. So lean melon 3 looks great. It's a great move, and then straight into the nice stale 540. So linking together stuff that looks good, uses the park, it's difficult, and it's executed well. It's ticking all the boxes. After the stale 5, he did roll over the jump box. We're not normally a fan of rolling over the jump box, but in such a good run and between such hard tricks, we sort of gonna, like, you can cut anyone a break. You know, with overall impression, you're taking into consideration everything. It's not just one thing. And so, just given that everything about the run was so top notch, that didn't really matter. And then ended with a kickflip into the fakie over the hip. Great run altogether. So super difficult tricks, great use of the park, but there was no use of the boxes or the rail. But he did link together all of the other obstacles really, really well. Again, with overall impression, we're taking into consideration everything. So there was really good use of the park in the way that he linked together the other obstacles. You know, the alley Indy over the hip, the backside Smith on the grind off extension over the channel 540 into the kickflip frontside air over the spine. That was great use of the park. So that use of the park pretty much offset the fact that he didn't use those other obstacles. But an amazing run, and qualifying in first. Okay, so the men's finals. In 8th place we had Kiefer Wilson, 58.36 with one number 3. So 16 seconds remaining in the run. We all know if you don't make a full run, you just don't get the full score. And he made his run in the prelims. Great run. I think he qualified 5th. Great use of the park. Great difficulty tricks. Just the bail really is a problem. You know, it's costly. Well done. Okay, so Luigi Cini, 7th place. Bail with 2 seconds remaining. Great run. Just if you're gonna, when you bail, we're just at a level where people are skating so well that a mistake like bailing is going to cost you heavily. Added the kickflip body varial 540, a lot of great tricks in there, good use of the park. It was all there, but unfortunately the bail was just really costly. 6th place, we got Alex Sorgente. So it's great to see Alex do well. I mean, it's great to see everyone in the Olympics. But Alex is a veteran, competed for a long time. I think when you compete for a long time, you have peaks and troughs of success, and that's completely normal. And it's great to see Alex on a high at the point of when the Olympics drops. I think that's some pretty exciting stuff. And seeing his run in prelims, it was great to watch. Finals was great run too. Left out the 180 to setback box fakie ollie in, which was a creative trick, and swapped it out for a backside 50-50, and then did a 180 slide on the flat. The fakie ollie in was stronger. Half cab 50-50 was great, as was the blunt and the Smith, as was the alley-oop 50-50 on the setback wall. Nose grab 540 is a nice touch, just shows that he can sort of do the more regular tricks. Did a rock fake in there, seemed to be a recovery. Missed a couple of tricks that he did in his first run, but ended with the full run with the fakie nose grind. Made a run in the finals at the Olympic Games. Well done, Alex. Good stuff. Okay, so in 5th place we had Tate Carew. Jump box kickflip Indy tuck knee was great. I think anytime you get a good position on a flip trick after you grab it, put it to your feet, it's pretty much a message to the judges that you do this trick really, really well. Execution on flip tricks is becoming a key ingredient to success, a key differentiation, key way to differentiate yourself to other skaters. You know, a lot of other people just put a kickflip on any way they can. Certain skaters put them on and get in a really nice position, and that definitely scores better. Deep end fronted sailfish was done really, really well. Execution is always important. To be a little bit critical, as I said in his prelims run, there was a little bit of back and forth on half of the skate park at the start of his run. After that, the run is sort of here, there, and everywhere, which is ultimately what we want. It was a great run, and Tate skated really, really well. Just a note as well, Tate didn't do a run that was as good as his run in prelims in the final, but he got a higher score than in the prelims. So just to explain how this happens, this is just a part of the scaling that I always say, like just be wary, that's all about the ranking, not about the score. It's a rank order evaluation, and that means that Tate gets a score based on where his run will rank against the existing scores. At the point in time when Tate did his run, the judges gave him a score relative to the other skaters that already had scores. The reason that he would have got a higher score is because either getting a lower score would have put him in the wrong ranking, or the judges needed to leave space around his score so other skaters can be scored around him. So just a note, when the skater is given a score, the judges try not to score them too close to another skater. That's because if two skaters are scored very closely, the scale can get jammed. So that means that, like if someone gets a 77.89 and then the next skater gets a 77.9, there's no room between them. So like if another skater comes on and he performs between those two skaters, there's no score that can put them in between. And so as a result, we have to leave space between both. And so we need to space between the different scores. But that's an example how the scale can change from day to day, with Tate getting a higher score on the in the next phase than he did on the first phase. And that's something that's very, very important to remember. I don't think everybody knows that. It's something that everybody should know, and that's why I say it all the time. Okay, so in 4th place we had Pedro Barros with a 91.65, run number 3. Okay, so the vert kickflip Indy over the hip gap, that was amazing. Did the rollover frontside 5-0, then the vert extension heel flip frontside air over the hip gap. That was big. Heel flip frontside airs, they're not the most common trick. He did that in a pretty rad style. It was really big over an obstacle in the skate park. One thing to do it on an extension, another thing to do it over a gap, over a hip. So combining like a difficult trick, combining great execution with use of the park. So you get a bit of a triple whammy in there. That was great. Then he came back into the deep and did a waterfall backside tail slide into the vert extension Indy 540. I mentioned before about the speed that you need to do that and how difficult it was to get that speed. Waterfall frontside Smith to the deep. Hip alley-oop India. On the alley-oop Indy, Pedro landed a bit low. So this definitely hurt him, mainly because on the next wall he went into a board slide to fakie. So I talked before about the consequences of making mistakes. We're talking about making it to a medal spot at the Olympics when everyone is absolutely shredding. So we're looking at every little thing that, every positive that someone does and every negative that someone does. So he landed low on the Indy alley-oop, which was, it's not the end of the world. But going into the board slide to fakie, that definitely hurt him because, that's a super, super easy trick. And, it definitely broke the flow of his run as well. Switch frontside 50-50 was perfect. I think maybe losing that speed helped him do that trick. That was good. And then the spine 5-0 off over the square Kano hip. I don't think that was as strong as the tail slide he did in his previous run. Not that we compare it to his previous run, but he probably would have been better off doing the tail slide. And then he did the setback wall, frontside nose grind, Indy Yankin. That was great as well. The run was insane. It was an amazing run, great use of the park. Just the problem is other people just skated better. So unfortunately that was in fourth place. A great run though, absolutely ridiculously good run. Well done, Pedro. Yes. In third place, bronze medal, we had Augusto Accio. So basically roll in, vert extension, heel flip, body varial Malin. I think it's amazing how Augusto can change up his run so easily and without warning. The spontaneity he has is great. Spontaneity doesn't really translate into points, just being that, to be honest, we don't know how much people have practiced. Someone could do a trick that we just haven't seen them do, and it's not necessarily because it's spontaneous, it's just because we didn't see him do it. So, but I just know that Augusto is a very spontaneous skater, and just commenting on that, it doesn't matter to his score, it's just impressive. So I think it just shows he's a naturally very talented skateboarder. But that's a rad way to start the run. Heel flip body varial. Melon 540 on the hip was done really well. The line at the end that he did was also very good. So hip mute 540 over the square Kano hip to spine, carve, and then the grind off hip nollie switch K was a nice addition to that line. It was creative because I don't think really many people really did a 540 over that square Kano hip. And then to do a mute 540 over a hip, I don't think really anyone else really does it. It's kind of a little bit more twisty. And then coming around and doing the nollie switch K. So both those tricks are done on obstacles, and they're both tricks that really no one else is doing. So it's bringing the use of the park, creativity, is some difficulty. It's good, combining all of these things. So I'll just give a quick comparison to Pedro. Augusto had a really complete line using all of the park. He had originality and difficult tricks, good execution, consistency and flow. I think it was quite clear Pedro had him on the execution on a few of his tricks, like his big transfers and the two flip tricks. But it was clear that he lost consistency when he sort of sketched and did the board slide to fakie. Two really different skaters, but I think just the makeup of the run and the consistency and Augusto doing the full run as opposed to Pedro sort of sketching was one of the key points of why he was ahead. Pedro skated amazing. It just Augusto skated a bit better, had a more complete run. Maybe a little bit more creative as well. Okay, second place, Tom Shah, 92.23 on his second run. So prior to explaining this, I'm going to explain some of the things to do with scaling and some of the considerations that the judges had to consider before scoring. As you know, you can get a higher or lower score for the same run dependent on the situation of the other competition, the other skaters in the competition, as I've mentioned a couple of times. The key part of the scoring is the ranking, not the score. Always recommend the skaters not to put too much thought into the score, more the ranking. When Tom took his first run, he was the second last skater to go. So no one had made a run. Everyone had bailed so far. And so that means the judges had no scale of points for made runs. So being in an Olympic final, we don't know if Tom's run will be the best run of the day, or we don't know if it's going to be the 8th run of the day. We don't have a crystal ball. So in the decision of giving Tom his score, we have to take into consideration, number one, it might be the best run. And number two, there may be an arms race of every single skater upping the ante and beating that run. And so say that got a 93 and we have 7 other skaters in the competition that potentially can go better. We have an arms race for those 7 points up to 100. So when Tom's score was given, we had to take into allowance that it could be the best run, or there could be other scores, a lot of other scores that could be better. So after that run, I gave the score a soft anchoring, so the judges don't have to give it that exact score, but somewhere around 92. So the judges, when the score came in, I think the score was maybe slightly less, and maybe it was slightly less than what Tom got the day before, but for potentially a better run. So again, the score can vary from day to day. The fact was that was the best run of the day, and any run that was less good would go below, any run that was better would go above. Okay, so now we'll go into Tom's run. So starting off with the big air hip alley-oop backside lip slide over the gap up to the vert extension. This trick was insane. So this was perhaps the best trick of the competition. I think that was definitely well and truly noted by the judges exactly how ridiculously gnarly that was. Frontside 360 starfish was great. Creative way to do a 3, frontside 3, difficult, big, rad. That was sick. The tail 5 and the melon 5 were good too. So getting critical here of some of the best skateboarding that you'll ever see. Tom's clearly one of the best skaters in the world, so it's obviously the most insane skateboarding that you can possibly see in park on this particular day on the planet. But I'm going to get a little bit critical to explain the judging, and this doesn't take away from exactly how gnarly this run is. It's like it's Tom Shah just destroying the park. So the beginning of the run is a little bit back and forth between the vert extension and the deep end. I mentioned before, it's going to be better to be sort of a little bit more around the park. Being hypercritical here, but that's what we do in the judges panel. On the other side, Keegan in first place did get a little bit similar at the end of his run, but at the start of his run he was a little bit more all over the park. I think it's more noticeable if you are sort of keeping yourself to one side of the park at the start of the run is more noticeable than if you do it at the end of the run. I thought a little bit at the start, Tom wasn't all over the park. He was stuck to a little bit one side of the park. Again, we're just getting to really minor details to differentiate between the absolute best skaters in the world doing different stuff. So in this run, he switched it up a little bit. And rather than go the Smith grind up the extension and then do the alley-oop lip slide over the channel to disaster on the quarter pipe, which is a great move. On this one, he, instead of doing the alley-oop lip slide over the channel up the extension, he did a kickflip into the fakie. Super rad skateboarding no matter what. But in adding that kickflip into the fakie, he was sort of taking out an obstacle, the alley-oop backside lip slide over that gap, which wasn't just a really hard trick, like an alley-oop backside lip slide over the channel, not the one that he did at the start of his run over the big gap. When he did in this run, when he did the one over the big gap, he did the kickflip into the fakie on the quarter. The only thing was that meant that he left out that obstacle of going over the channel and up the extension, and he replaced it with a straight kickflip into the fakie on a quarter. So just to go back a little bit, he already had, as far as quarter moves, he basically had some other stuff just on straight quarters as well. He had the tail 5, melon 5, and I think the heel flip Indy. So got 3 or 4 things already on just straight quarter pipes. And so when he took out the alley-oop lip slide over the gap up the quarter, he was taking out an obstacle and he was replacing it with a great trick, but it was effectively an obstacle that he's sort of already done 4 times. So getting a bit of props for doing a hard trick, but the use of the park is going down. Yeah, that just to be critical. And then after that, had the fakie 180 on the hump. Just to be absolutely super hypercritical, it's probably better to have a trick that will right you from being backwards to forwards rather than straight 180 on the ground. And then he went into a backside 5-0. So fakie 180 on the flat, into a backside 5-0. Not the hardest trick in his run, actually the easiest, and straight out of a fakie 180 on the ground. Got some mental stuff in this run. Like, we just can't take it away from the gnarliness of the other tricks, but we have to take it all into consideration. So did the fake 180, back to 5-0. And then we had the alley-oop tail grab 540. Now that trick was insane. Over the hip, alley-oop tail grab 540. Insanely good trick. But in being the judgmental people that we are, getting paid to judge, unfortunately, we have to sort of notice that it's also the second tail grab 540 in the run. So when we see the second tail grab 540, we do see some repetition. Different obstacle, slightly different trick because it's alley-oop. But essentially it's a tail grab 5, and he's already done one. I think, like, had there been a different grab on the other one or a different grab on this one, it would have gone down a bit better. But I hate being harsh to Tom. I mean, like, it's such a good run, and the skateboarding is just through the roof. It's amazing. But, when it comes down to making these decisions, we really have to get into the fine detail and really differentiate with whatever we can, because that's what we do. Congrats, Tom, for silver. It was so well deserved. It was an amazing run to see, and it's been amazing to see the journey of making it through in Shanghai, or making it through in Hungary, on a nail biter, on a last chance qualifier, and making it in such an amazing way, and then making it to silver. So congrats, Tom. That was amazing. Okay, so first place gold medal skater, we had Keegan Palmer. So just to get back to some scaling, comparing from day to day, scores aren't comparable from day to day, they differ. But Keegan got a 93.78 in the prelims, and in the finals he got a 93.11. In actual fact, that does actually sort of correspond, because his run in prelims was slightly better, and he got slightly less of a score in the final for the run that he made. So in this particular case, scaling with him was in line. It's not always in line with everybody. Again, just look at your ranking and not the score. So basically the same run as in prelims. You don't lose points for repetition between rounds. Repetition within your run will lose your points. So started out with the vert extension, alley-oop, indie bone. Perfect execution of a classic trick. Backsmith using the obstacles, great execution. Malin 5 over the roll-in. Linking the obstacles together, great execution. Kickflip hip to spine using the obstacles, linking them all together. So a variety of tricks in there as well, but really using all these different obstacles, linking them together with different tricks, difficult tricks. And at this stage of his run, he has crossed most of the park and hit different obstacles each time with fairly different tricks. I think if you go through Keegan's run, the tricks really aren't similar. Every trick is a different spice. It's like making a meal and putting different spices all through it. There's nothing that's like really similar. They're all kind of different. I mean, you got two 540s in there, but like one's like a stalefish in the deep, and then one's a melon over the channel. There's difference in a lot of this stuff. So got the alley frontside tail, like just a little. That's I guess is a filler. Got the kickflip lean melon in there. As I mentioned, technically one of the better tricks in the deep that we see. Great looking, aesthetically beautiful trick. So we have the waterfall backside nose grind in the deep end kickflip lean melon. Then we have the waterfall frontside board slide, the vert extension frontside nose grind, jump box lean melon 3, deep end stale 5, the box rollover, and then the hip kickflip into fakie. So a very full run, all different tricks, crossing all sorts of parts of the park, really using all of it, and a great run. Gold medal winning run. So congratulations, Keegan. So let's get into a little bit of discussion about Keegan versus Tom. So I'm going to say that it was close. So it was a 93.11 versus 92.23. So when the judges are leaving a scoring, we need to leave space between the skaters to allow for people to rank in between each other. They weren't even a full point apart, but I think they were closer. But the judges do have to leave space between scores for other people to be able to go in there. And we have to score very quickly, so we have to leave as much space as possible just for practical reasons. So Keegan beat Tom on the use of the park. Neither used the setback box or the ledge or the rail. Tom didn't use the spine either. So Keegan used the spine, did a very difficult trick on the spine, good looking trick. And so that Tom not hitting the spine and then leaving out the channel, it meant a little bit more just because he's leaving out an obstacle when he's not using all the obstacles, and Keegan is using more of the obstacles. So as well, Keegan, when he did use those obstacles, he used it in a mad combo. So great tricks on all of it. So as I mentioned before, Keegan also wins on the sort of the variety of tricks. Tom repeating the tail grab 540 variation would have been counted against him. I think perhaps Keegan also won on execution. As I said, Keegan's combinations were stronger. Backside Smith to Malin 5 over the channel kickflip frontside there was very strong. Just to note, Tom's easiest trick was a backside 5-0 on the rollover. Keegan's easiest trick was a backside nose grind on the waterfall. I think Keegan's easiest trick was harder. I mean, that's not necessarily a way that we measure it, but that's just a reflection. There are also some other similarities in the run. Both had kickflip into fakie. Both had front 360 to 540 in the deep. Very similar stuff. Comparing the stuff in isolation is very hard, and it's actually not very practical because, I mean, we could say, all right, so we're going to compare a frontside 360 into a Malin 5, or we're going to compare with a lean 360 into a stale 5. The thing is there was other tricks around it that really affected it. So we're judging the entire run. I think also what was to note as well, as I mentioned before, Keegan did roll over the box. Not preferred, but actually Tom did as well. He rolled over the corner of it as well. Again, very, very close. I think Tom had a run coming after that was really, really strong. I don't have a crystal ball, but I would assume that run was going in the direction of taking Keegan's existing run out. But we don't have a crystal ball. We don't know what was coming at the end of it. We don't know the sketchiness or whatever. So it's all, that bit's all academic, and this was the end result. Throughout the entire event, it was super, super amazing skateboarding. A lot of huge achievements. It's a massive day for skateboarding. I think it's the best skateboard competition I've ever been to. I think as far as park skating, it was the best skateboarding that I ever saw. And it was an amazing vibe, and I think everybody that was involved really achieved something and represent skateboarding really, really well, and I'm proud to have been a part of it and to witness the skateboarding that went down. But to everyone involved, congratulations, and see you at the next event.